What's it say?
Let's see who's
Oh, it looks like a
also-
little bear. Looks like a bear.
Right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, September 19th, 2023 meeting of the Litchfield Planning Board. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll start with the roll call of members. Michael Croto, Chair.
Kate Stevens, Vice Chair.
Sam Terrell, member.
Kimberly Queenan, Selectmen's Rep.
Jared O'Connell, member. Jeremy Robitaille, member.
Okay, good evening, everybody. And with us this evening is Jay Mankara from NRPC. We have Joan McKibben, our Planning Board Administrator, and Mr. Luke Perrin, our Town Engineer. Welcome. All right, the first item, public input on non-agenda items. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on non-agenda items this evening? Come forward, sir.
Are you guys gonna do anything with the North End, mixed use this year? Are you talking about it? Are you doing anything with it? Are you gonna do anything with it?
I think, well, I must,
I mean, it's
I
getting
Well,
want to
that
answer,
time of
there's
year.
the economic
The
development.
development, there was an economic development
Started.
committee that was put together, and I know that they have been looking into,
We're in the early stages of developing strategies to work on those parts of town.
yeah.
We've only been going for, what, 2 months now? Something
Yeah.
like this? Yeah, so it's very early stages right now.
And then bring the stakeholders in after. We're just giving everybody where we are today. Yeah.
So is it something that could happen this year, or it's gonna be another year before you put it to the
There's another year
voters
to
again?
anything.
I think
Concrete.
one year, and from the Economic Development Committee point of view, from a planning board, we can have a discussion about that. Also, because you were postponed last year, right? As
Oh,
well.
a couple of years now.
Yeah.
At some point, we either gotta say it's gonna go with what's there, and the end of the day, I don't think it's the best, but if that's what it is, that's what it is. So at some point, we're gonna have to do something. I mean, it's been a long time.
Yeah, I
If
know.
it has to go another year, I'm fine with that, but after that, it's gonna still be,
We're working on a pretty comprehensive plan in the end, but we're at a very early stage right now to get
Yeah.
things redeveloped, so.
yeah, and it's really, as I said in the past, I think the only way that we can come up with a nice project that looks good is if it's mixed use, and we can have housing in there, then we can do something, but brick and mortar for a store is just not gonna work.
Yeah, I know, there have been discussions with the planning board, but I think we deferred to the Economic Development Committee because this committee was just
Yeah.
formed and they're
Oh, that's good. Okay.
doing this sort of overview of the town, so I think we kind of deferred it to them for now.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that there will be discussions.
So You'll see a bunch of stuff coming out from us to the town for input very soon.
Okay,
And I would think you'd be interested in it.
yeah,
Also,
yeah.
it sounds like very similar, they're updating, is it the economic development chapter, right, of the master
That's
plan?
my-
which
That's
I
the plan,
believe-
yeah.
So are you gonna hold public hearings or something?
Which
Will
I,
the planning board do it, or
yeah.
who does it?
Well, the Economic Development Committee is its own committee,
Yeah.
so they have public meetings.
Yeah, but how do I
schedule.
know when those are?
We'll let you know as soon as
Yeah,
they start
the-
happening,
I'm
so.
not sure when the next one
It
is.
is on it's September 27th. It's on the town calendar,
Yeah.
but
Our next open meeting is this Wednesday, next Wednesday.
November, I have September 27th.
Correct, next Wednesday.
So next Wednesday
Yep.
night?
This room.
in, yeah.
Right here.
that's true.
Next Wednesday, okay,
Yep.
So-
perfect, thank you.
All right.
Thanks for
It's
asking.
at 6:30.
6:30.
6:30.
6:30. Okay. Anybody else? All right, at this point, I'll close public input on non-agenda items. And we'll go to the first item on the agenda this evening, which is an application by 255 Dairy Road LLC, tax map 2, lot 8 at 255 Dairy Road. Parcel is in 80 acres in Litchfield and 10 acres in Hudson. Litchfield parcel is in the Highway Commercial District and a multifamily residential overlay district. Proposal is for 172 two-bedroom multifamily units in 30 buildings. It is anticipated that this project will be phased over a 4-year period. The project will contain private roads. The application was accepted by this board on July 18, 2023. And I'll turn it over to the applicants to introduce themselves.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is Jim Petropoulos. I'm a professional engineer doing business at 3 Congress Street in Nashua, New Hampshire with Hayner Swanson. Rick is the owner of 255 Dairy Road LLC. Morgan Hollis is our project attorney, and he is with us this evening. This is our second formal presentation before the Planning Board. You'll likely recall that we met on July 18th. And where did the summer go? And you'll recall that evening that we really provided, I thought, a thorough presentation of the overall project. We discussed the BAE history. We did an in-depth on the property itself, the description of the property. We went through the proposed development. We spent a good amount of time on stormwater, the wetland, and flood zone impacts. We did provide you with albeit a brief traffic overview, and we looked at the architecture of the proposed buildings. And as just read into the record, it is intended to be a townhouse-type development, multifamily, 172 units, private roads. We were hoping to come here tonight to have a frank and thorough discussion about traffic. If you recall, on the 18th, I think that there were some questions about traffic. Jay, in his review, brought up a number of items, as did Lou. And of course, Dairy Road being under New Hampshire DOT jurisdiction, that evening we kind of indicated to you, tough to really make decisions. We indicated Rick is open and to having discussions about improvements. The current plan is to have a designated left turn lane in as you're traveling southbound on 102, and of course settle on the other side, have a painted island as well. So there'll be a front door improvement being proposed. How will DOT react? What about Cutler? Those were the questions we had. Unfortunately, the DOT has been slow in terms of their process. I think it's public knowledge that they lost a key employee. It kind of set them back. And the truth is that as of yesterday, they're aware of our study. It's in the queue, but they have yet to review it in detail and provide us with comments. So we're sitting here tonight somewhat in the same position we were on July 18th. Now, having said that, Mr. Chairman, rather than kick the meeting further down the road, we thought we'd come in and maybe talk about some other non-traffic issues so that maybe we feel like, okay, we've gone through, drainage, we've gone through, other elements of the project, and, oh, by the way, where are you at with some of the other moving parts? So that's what I'd like to try to accomplish tonight, if that's okay. And it'll be kind of a brief presentation, and be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Do we know where you are in terms of the Hudson process?
I'm going to let you know, you bet.
Okay. All right. Because I know I did receive we received something from the town of Hudson on August 17th, 2023. I'm just going to read it into the record. It says, "Thank you and the Litchfield Planning Board for the opportunity to provide comment on the Rose Meadows proposal. Below is a copy of the comment from Town of Hudson Engineering Department. I would reiterate engineering's comment on off-site improvements that you and I discussed. Understanding that New Hampshire 102 is the jurisdiction and authority of New Hampshire DOT, we recommend examining the realignment of the site drive and Cutler Road to be in alignment with one another at their intersection with 102. We also recommend considering a signal warrant analysis. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, Brian Groth, Town Planner." Below is the comments from the town engineer, Elvis Dima, which says, "The applicant is currently working with the town of Hudson and Hudson Water Utility Consultant to complete a peer review regarding domestic and fire protection. This review could result in recommendations that might require water utility improvements in Hudson and Litchfield. And number 2, applicant should propose off-site improvements at the proposed entrance based on the traffic challenges and accidents at Cutler Road and Route 102 and Page Street and Route 102. Thank you, Elvis. Dima. So,
Okay, well,
Just put that on
thank
the
you, Mr.
record,
Chairman.
so-
They were on my list. I think since you just read it into the record, I think I'll start with Hudson. We are currently Jay, I'm sorry, if you could go to 2 slides down, just to remember everybody be reminded that, we focus the resi, of course, yeah, that's fine, Jay. We focus the residential development in Litchfield. There is a 10-acre tract in the northeastern corner of the property. And what we're proposing is that our private drive enter that property, and we're proposing an outdoor storage area, and then some self-storage units solely for the use of this project. So that site disturbance, that proposal does require site plan approval by the town of Hudson. It's quite common when you have a property in 2 towns that the same project has to go to both boards. It's happened a number of times over my career. And so we are in that process. We're in allowed use over there. They have a peer review, and we're working through the peer review comments. It's likely that we will appear probably the first time before the town of Hudson in October. With regard to those comments, again, traffic is, as I just said in my opening remarks, let's kind of wait until we get DOT to weigh in before we speculate what the what-ifs are. Signal warrant analysis will definitely part of the study. Is a signal warranted there or not? Accidents at Cutler, quite honestly, our consultant looked at that, and there's a very, very low occurrences of accidents at that intersection, and that is in the study. And when we get in the traffic discussion, Bob Bollinger, our traffic consultant, will be in here to provide that presentation. With regard to water, it's kind of a unique situation. We're in Litchfield, and then if I'm not mistaken, Rick, right, we're back into Hudson, right? Traveling north on 102, that's where the 12-inch line is. We're proposing to extend it into the site. They asked us to commission a water study. Their consultant in the town is going to run some models based on our demands and our fire flows. I think they have a draft of it. We don't have a draft copy of it yet, so we'll wait and see that. We're told there's plenty of water, but somewhere in the network, there's a couple glitches in those networks, and those glitches are in the town of Hudson. So we're also in a wait-and-see mood with regard to water, but we're happy to report that, whatever the findings are, back to this board. So that's where we are with Hudson. Mr. Karen, Lou Cairns, since July 18th, we've been back with a second round with Lou on site planning and drainage. We recognize Lou's traffic comments are still out there. And as of today, we have what I call a happy letter. We do have a letter from Lou, I think, saying that he's got no further comments, but I don't want to put words in his mouth as he's sitting 3 feet to the left of me. Same with Mr. Minkara. Jay reached out to Jay a couple weeks ago and said, how are you feeling about things? And he said, well, traffic is still out there, but in terms of site and drainage, again, I don't want to put words in Jay's mouth, but I think we're pretty much there. ADA accessible units was a comment that came up at the hearing, and what we told the board is that we would look into it. We weren't qualified to answer that evening. Rick reached out to our project architect, Dennis Myers, and Dennis drafted a letter regarding that. We have submitted it to the town as part of our project record. The letter states, according to the IBC, the International Building Code and Fair Housing Accessibility Guidelines, that ADA accessibility is not required for multifamily townhouse projects such as this. The letter goes on to cite a number of references in those codes that speaks to that. And I see you have a copy of that, Mr. Chairman.
I do, actually, yes, from September 12th, 2023.
New Hampshire DES permitting. We have received our New Hampshire DES Wetlands Bureau permit. You'll notice we had 3 impact areas highlighted in green. I also, a part of our testimony in July was we've obtained approvals from the Zoning Board of Adjustment, special exception for wetland and buffer impacts as well as floodplain impacts. So what's changed since the 18? Well, when you look at the drawing to the eye, the untrained eye, really not much has changed. We haven't repositioned any units. We haven't moved any roads. I would say that we've made minor grading changes. We've made minor note changes. We relocated a dumpster in one of the villages, I think was a good idea. We've added some sidewalk connections where we had them in front of units. We've better connected them to the roadway sidewalks. We've made minor edits in the Hudson portion of the project. And also we narrowed down 2 of the crossings for wetlands. We actually reduced the wetland impact before the permit was issued from about 9,140 square feet to 6,825. So a fairly sizable 20% reduction there. So that's really all I had tonight, Mr. Chairman. You know, in summary, we continue to progress the project. It's unique to 2 towns, so we will keep you apprised. It doesn't mean one town has to wait for the other or is subject to. Generally, what will happen is once a town's action is done and both actions are done, I'll have to go to both towns and get them to sign the same plan, and that ends up on record. I believe you record master site plans, as does Hudson, so getting those signatures is fine. We pledge to continue to work with them. But again, the big thing is DOT. I will tell you that 2 weeks go by like that. Mr. Rick is not here in 2 weeks, so if we do have an action tonight, if you're thinking about that second meeting in October, that probably makes a lot of sense for us. And if we need to provide a letter of extension for action by this board, we can certainly provide that letter, Mr. Chairman. So with that, Morgan, Rick, or myself are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Just, BAE will be out on the 28th, the final day that they'll be there, so then they're gone at that point. They won't be out there anymore after that date. They actually turn the keys over, the buildings to us, and so at that point they're out. They were supposed to be out 3 months ago, but they needed 3 more months, so we rented them the property for 3 months.
Interesting. Mr. Karen, do you have anything to comment regarding your letter? Did you want to say anything?
Like Jim says, there's been 2 letter reports since they've been here. The last one got postponed. So they had made the revisions and resubmitted yesterday afternoon some changes based on my letter report. And they've basically taken care of everything. The only major change to the project is the stormwater detention management area D. Do you have a little arrow thing that you can point to?
It won't show on the screen.
No, just the area.
Oh, okay.
It's that little cluster.
Just to the left of the, oh,
Keep going. That,
Yeah.
yeah, right in that cluster right there. It had been underground,
yeah.
a combination of rain gardens with underground storage. And they've done some additional studies for the exfiltration rates or infiltration rate. And decided to change it into some open, typical infiltration sedimentation basins with a lot more storage. Net result was slight reduction in the post-development flows.
Yeah, we did some additional testing there, and that information, along with loose comments, help reshape that area, but feel confident it's a good solution.
Okay. All right. Jay, did you want to add anything?
Just kind of echoing what Mr. Petropoulos said, I think most of my comments were satisfied. Most of them were regarding, changes to notes on the plan, putting in the correct impact fees. So those comments, I think, have all been addressed. Obviously, traffic is really the biggie that remains. They did add some landscaping, I'll note, near the entrance, around the mailbox area and in front of the units that are closest to Dairy Road. So yeah, overall, my comments are satisfied at this point.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Anything that was presented?
I just see some questions here about handicap parking spaces and disabled accessible units that you said would update the board on September 5th, but that's been, so
That's
do
why
you
we gave you that letter. We don't need any.
So this is the letter that they were
Yeah, the
referring
IBC is
to.
not
I see.
required.
Okay, so it's not required, so there won't be any.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And we don't have any financing, any HUD money, we don't have any financing that would require that, so it really just goes by the building code.
Okay.
Would that be an addition that you could do to that front building if you do go semi-commercial out there at all?
Oh, if we went commercial, that would be totally different.
okay.
We'd have handicap.
Oh, sure.
parking and
Right.
Handicap bathrooms in the rest, in the,
Whatever goes there. yeah.
whatever goes in there,
Yeah.
then that's a totally different ballgame.
Yep. okay.
Housing, well, if you read the letter, the two townhouses and two-family or two-story.
Yeah.
You'd have to get the multi-story buildings to do that.
Okay.
There'd be other things that would, I'm sure if there was HUD money involved and things like that, then it would be a different ballgame, but
Yeah.
we don't have any of that.
And do all of the sidewalks have an area, a proper ramp for accessibility,
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
they'll all have ramps, yeah.
including the area that the sidewalk ends because of the low traffic? There will be a ramp. Will there be-
Yeah, we tip down everything to match pavement so everybody can get access the sidewalk throughout the entire
Or
project, yeah.
If somebody's pushing a carriage, they're not going over a curb and they're going right, a smooth transition.
Right.
Okay.
If you drove through Callaway Court on Page Road, that's one of our other projects, just drive through there and we're gonna build the exact same thing. That's what the place is gonna look like, that's what the sidewalk's gonna look like. Everything that's there is what's really gonna be here, same unit, same everything. So, gives you a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have any update on the second egress?
Yeah.
So we had good discussions early on with our neighbor, and I think, Rick's word is good, and I think that,
They're in their engineering stage.
we'll revisit it. They're not as far along as we are. They had indicated that they had a development plan for the back of their parcel. And so we said we would work with them. The water main comes from 102 through their property, and that would be a benefit to them to have water on their site in exchange for this easement. So there's been nothing written or formal, but we believe we've got a deal.
Okay, is that something, would we need at least a draft plan before we could approve? If the fire department is requesting a second egress, I'm just not sure that we can approve the project without something, like some sort of site plan or rough idea from your neighbors.
Oh, I have an agreement.
And an easement agreement.
Just the easement is?
We would need an easement agreement as well.
Okay. So would that hold up like
No, I
certificate
would,
of
I would
occupancy or
suggest
anything?
I would suggest we could put forth language as a potential condition of approval
Okay.
with regard to that easement. Why don't you let us work on that
Okay.
for next
Yeah, I just don't
month?
wanna lose
Yeah.
sight of it.
When Rick and I met, I think with Joan and the fire department, on a pre-app meeting, he had asked us to explore it, we told him we would, so we progressed it to this point. Do we have something hard and signed today? No, we don't. But we can put forth language that you'll be satisfied with,
Okay.
when we get to that point.
I would mention that Jeff and I are meeting with the other budding property owner on Thursday morning to
Oh,
talk
you
about
are?
their density,
Oh,
so
Okay.
they are still thinking about it.
I just don't want, this plan to be approved and then the driveway, that second egress is never either paved or gravelled or whatever, years down the road for things out of your control.
understood. It's a little bit of a little slippery slope, on perfecting that easement. And so that's why we'll ask the capable hands of Mr. Hollis to come up with a couple sentences about that.
Okay, thank you.
likely with a contingent if that condition would ever happen.
Okay,
You'd want to know, and as would we.
exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did we get a copy of the zoning decision? And is that in our file? I'm just curious.
I don't have it.
Okay.
You know, we did, if I may, Mr. Chairman, it wasn't available on the 18th.
Yeah, I don't remember, yeah, I
But,
recall
but,
something.
but since
that
then,
wasn't-
I have copies.
Okay.
and-
I have a copy.
You have a copy? Okay, good. I just want to make sure it's in the
Yeah,
file.
so they exist.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Does the board have any other questions at this time? All right, at this time, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Is there any members of the public that wish to comment this evening on this application? Spooky ghost. And seeing none, I guess we will close public comment at this time. So, I guess I guess I would ask the applicant, where are we gonna go from here? Are you going to present a traffic study next time when we meet?
Hopefully.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
if you have it from DOT, obviously.
I
you
think
need
we're
that
encouraged by
information.
the last communication our traffic consultant had with the state,
Yeah.
that they know they have it, they know they had it on June 2, and it's in the queue,
Okay.
which means it's pending. So I'd like to think, Mr. Chairman, that when we come back in 4 weeks, we'll have a written response. As soon as we get it, we'll share with you. And then we will come in and with our consultant and present and interpret DOT's response and then open the discussion.
Okay, all right. So I guess for the next meeting, then, we will look to do that. And is there anything, I mean, does the board have any questions or want to talk about anything that want
Or
to next?
anything else that you
meeting?
guys like or dislike, or you fine with the plan the way it is, and the way it looks, and I guess that's really what it comes down to.
Oh, Mr. Karen, I'm sorry.
What's the status of the AOT permit?
Yeah, so alteration of drainage, looks at disturbance during construction, and they look at kind of an overall stormwater review. We did receive comments from them, and I've resubmitted to them just yesterday. Lou, so they have 30 days from yesterday, which gets us close to October 5. So I think we're getting there. If you're familiar with that permit process, they now go to several different agencies, one of which is Fish and Game, and they will ask for comments. So it's a little bit of, and they're completely understaffed as well, so they're running a little slower than historically they
Yeah,
have
and,
been. so.
like, one of the problems with it is Fish and Game doesn't want any sumps in the catch basins, and the AOT wants sumps in the catch basins.
There's some tug of wars there.
Right.
So we agree to smaller grate holes in the grates or something, I mean, just,
Yeah, so we're trying to make happy with a couple different agencies. They will likely ask if you could go back to the site plan, Jay. And Rick's agreed to, they'll likely ask for some posted placards in select areas of the site, conservation area, things like that.
I was going to bring that up. I'm supposed to meet with Rick. If maybe as of the 28th, we can go out there. Because the Conservation Commission didn't want, like, wall-to-wall placards, but maybe if you see one here, and then you can see the next one.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Nothing is more natural when they start stringing them on 50 feet, they look like out-of-bounds stakes on a golf course, so, we've agreed for the judicious placement of those markers, Joe. Thank you.
they want a conservation easement on any of the land that,
They want a deed
a
restriction.
deed restriction,
Yeah.
sorry.
But it's essentially on, if you go to the aerial, Jay, sorry to keep bouncing you around, it's really in those wooded areas to remain, areas that we will not develop, never develop, that there'll be a deed restriction on no further development in a lot of those areas. And so Rick has agreed to do that, yep.
So where there isn't any units that we're not gonna cut trees, it's not shown on the plan, they're gonna be a deed restriction.
Yeah.
But it's wetland, so
It's already restricted, I guess, right?
Conservation Commission, you know, it's just everybody's. And then the fees they want affordable housing, and then the fees they charge you is crazy.
I know the fire department did comment on the project. Have there been any updates with them? Any conversations or?
No, they've been fantastic. They were very cooperative with road names and addresses, second access, hydrant placements, things like that. So my testimony tonight is I believe we're current with the fire department, yeah.
What about the police department? I'm just curious. Have you reached out to them, asked them any questions? I mean, do they have any concerns or?
We provided them with an application, submittal package as we're required to do. I can't recall if they responded in writing or not.
I don't think so. I
No?
don't think so.
Have you reached out to the schools about busing or anything? Or you're confident that the bus would be fine with that turnaround?
Well, we thought it was good for them that they could come in and spin and not drive through the development, because some of the little clusters might actually be a little more difficult to maneuver. So, Rick's a big proponent of having the kids walk to that bus drop off. That's why we have sidewalks
I'm
there.
not sure, if you look at the schools and you look at the bus lines and the bus and all the cars, the kids even ride the bus anymore?
Yeah.
Not as many, I
Yeah,
think,
so
but
it's
the buses are pretty
I
tough.
mean, I drove by Griffin this morning and the line was almost all the way down the Pinecrest.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like 3 buses in the line, the rest is cars, so I'm not sure kids ride the bus quite as much as as we used to have to.
It's not cool to show up on the bus.
My poor kids. Do you know how long that stretch of road is? Like, say, from the turnaround to the furthest cluster?
From the interior intersection to Hudson?
To the furthest cluster, because I want to say an elementary schooler can't walk more than, like, there's a certain distance that,
That's on the main road, these are all private roads.
okay, so you don't have to
So from the
even let
from
them.
from the bus
Okay.
pickup to the furthest unit, I'm gonna guess is about 2,200 feet,
Okay.
a little more than a quarter mile.
And sort of on that same note, you had mentioned that you weren't planning to develop all of these units at once.
No.
Would you be willing to put like an annual limit on the plan of how many units?
Well, I think if we take the 172 units divided by 4 is somewheres in that ballpark.
Would you be willing to put it on the, like, as in the notes of the site plan?
Yeah, we can tell you that.
Sure.
Thank you.
It won't, it just has to come out to the amount of units, so you can't build a half a
Can't build one.
building.
So we'll
So like divide by
we'll
4
front
and round
load,
up.
at 6-unit buildings, it'll be the phasing, and I'll put a note on the plan. It'll be something like 42, 42, 42, and then it might be
Perhaps a phasing,
Remainder.
something less.
little phasing plan sheet.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Rick how we're gonna go about doing this, but, we can put the unit counts and approximate phase lines as long as we have, the right to be flexible to make minor
So
adjustments. Yeah.
to do that, does that mean you won't charge me impact fees?
Nice try.
Maybe we can update the schedule a bit. I don't know.
Careful what you wish for. No, but we'll do that, I'm just kidding.
Oh, well.
A lot of people that want a lot of stuff from this project.
Okay. So I guess for next time, we're gonna be concentrating on the traffic study. And, so if the board has any questions, we can bring those to the table at the next meeting. When is our next meeting? Do we know?
The 3rd and the 17th.
Okay,
Says
for
we- to
October.
the 17th.
I guess depending upon what happens with DOT, I mean, when would you gentlemen love to say, like,
17th.
17th? Okay,
I'm not gonna be here on the 3rd.
all right. So we will table this, continue this hearing to October 17th at 7 PM here in Town Hall. Does anybody have anything else? Because at this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to entertain a motion to continue this hearing to October 17th.
I'll make a motion to continue this hearing until the meeting on October 17th.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion by Jared, I have a second by Sam. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained. Motion passes 6-0-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll see you soon.
This one.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Joan. Bye, Jake. Joan, if you need an extension letter, we'll talk between now and then.
You actually don't, because it's regional impact, we get another 30 days, so
Okay.
we're actually good.
Good.
But if we don't approve it on the 17th, we will.
So if this goes on the 3rd for acceptance, after you notices for Friday, is that gonna be enough time to just take a look at this?
Yeah.
I don't supply these, and I have, from Nelson's, the approval that they can represent Nelson's, but I don't have from Seth Miller, they added Seth Miller's property.
Next item on the agenda is return of escrow accounts,
Thank you.
Chick Farm Woodworking. Thank you, Lou. Have a good night. Chick Farm Woodworking, last activity May 2023. I'm going to turn that. Joan, do you want to talk about this one?
Right, that's the woodworking shop at the south end of town on 3A, and he only has $374 left, and we paid Jay's NRPC's bill, so the last activity was May. He's been approved, so I'd like to return that.
Okay, and how much is it?
$374 plus interest.
Okay. So they're seeking a return of that, that escrow amount, so do you want to, the board want to entertain a motion? Or can someone again entertain a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion to return the $374 plus interest to the Chick Farm from their escrow account.
Okay, I have a motion by Kate, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Kim. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 6-0-0. Okay. Next item, committee reports. You know what, I'll start with you, Jeremy. You're on the Economic Development Committee, so maybe you can give us a...
So no change since last meeting, because we only meet once a month on that committee, so still working on kind of some good plans. We're doing some analysis on our best approaches here to come to the town with plans going forward, so that's where we're at now, and like I said, we meet next Wednesday, so next Wednesday, here.
All right, thank you. Kim?
Yes, NRPC Quarterly Commissioner Meeting is tomorrow night, 30 Temple Street in Nashua at 7 PM. The Litchfield Energy Commission will be meeting Thursday, September 21st, 6 PM here at the Town Hall. After that, the next Board of Selectmen meeting will be Monday, November 25th, 6:30 PM here at the Town Hall. We're focusing on budgeting at this moment. The Economic Development Committee, Jeremy just responded to. So again, we really just use the group to say where we are today before we can do the next step.
When did you say the next selectman meeting was?
That will be on Monday, September 25th.
That's a lot of meetings.
There's a lot, this whole week, that quarterly catch. Let's see, I'll ask Kim Kleiner to let Rick Charbonneau know about that meeting. I mean, I figured he'd come in later with stakeholder stuff, but if he wants to start attending, that's great, or watching. All right, let's see. And the last one will be the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. We will be meeting on October 2nd. That's what I have.
Okay, Sam, did you want to talk about the Energy Committee, or?
No, this will be the first meeting where we'll have members that have been sworn in, so people will be able to vote. But
What meeting was that? I mean,
the Energy Committee on this Thursday, the 21st.
Okay. So our next planning board meeting is obviously October 3rd. The Conservation Commission will be meeting October 5th. October 5th at 6:30 here at the fire station, Joan, or?
at the fire station.
At the fire station, because the Budget Committee has this room, I think. The CIP, next CIP meeting Kim mentioned is October 2nd. And I have not heard anything from the Lower Merrimack Local River Advisory Committee. And that's all I have. Kate, do you have anything?
Budget committee meets next week, Thursday, on the 28th, and we'll be getting into town budget that meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, approval of the September 5th, 2023 minutes. Did anybody have an opportunity to take a look at those? Have any questions, concerns, amendments? I thought they looked pretty good.
Looks pretty clean.
Yep, very well done. I would entertain a motion to approve them.
So made.
Okay, Kate made the motion. Do I have a second? Second by Jared. Any further discussion? All right, all those in approval of the minutes from September 5th, 2023, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 6-0-0. Thank you. And thank you to Mr. Sullivan, who does the minutes. Great job. Okay. Joan, any other business this evening?
No, not this evening.
Jay, anything from you?
Just to mention, we haven't talked about master plan updates in a while, but, you know, I'm gonna be working a couple of chapters. We talked about natural resources, which is a light lift since we just finished the conservation plan for the Conservation Commission, and population and housing, which is also a fairly light lift, at least in terms of the data, because it's all updated and it's new. And that might be, I think, beneficial for the Economic Development Committee as well.
Did you want to mention something about the regulations related to the floodplain
Floodplain,
development?
yes, that's, I think everybody had a chance to see that on the site. Basically, this comes from FEMA. They've gone through, our everybody's floodplain regulations and recommended changes, so that's up on the site. Joan put it up there. So that is gonna have to be, acted on at town meeting. That'll have to be a zoning amendment. So, realistic, I don't think there's anything jump out at you. It all seemed really, procedural. Yeah, but needless to say, we do need to do it, because flood
Some
insurance
reference
is
points were
important.
changed. Yeah.
Right, so we'll add it to our tickler file as we think about what to do for zoning amendments this year, but that's a pretty easy one.
It seemed to just replace the 100-year floodplain with some elevation, right? It seemed that was standard in that. I was questioning whether FEMA was involved or not, so it sounds like they are, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, I mean,
'Cause I was gonna say,
it's
should
through
we
the
run that
state,
by
but
FEMA?
it's ultimately FEMA, so, right, so that's, and just throwing that out there, working backwards, pretty typically, our second meeting in December is when we vote to put items to the first public hearing in January, so I know that it's a little ways off, but it's less of a ways off than we might think, because that usually means that we're finalizing language in November. So I'm guessing we're not gonna do any heavy lifts this year for zoning, but, you know, just kind of throwing that out there. We did resurrect the home occupation amendments minus, you know, the firearms related stuff, so I think we were fine with the language the last time we saw it, but, you know, just throwing it out there, we'll probably at least have a couple of amendments, if not anything more major than that, and we should probably
Take a look at them.
you know, right. So far, it's nothing that would take a whole lot of time. But I'm assuming at this point, we're probably gonna hold off on major substantive changes this year. If not, we better get to work really fast.
We just have to see what the
But to
impact
Rick's
fees
point,
are.
I think it's probably fair to assume, to Rick's point, that we're probably not coming forward with something.
Yeah.
it doesn't seem likely at this point, just because I think the Economic Development
No.
Committee is still in the
Right.
early phases,
And
so.
we are staring down a clock, so we can probably just keep it to some minor amendments this year.
so. Okay.
I think we should look at a couple site plan things, though. Like the gas station, like the flat roof, how it's just suggested, it's not required to have
And the
that kind of.
pumps.
Yep, and,
Okay.
so I haven't really reviewed them in whole in a while, but I might pick through them a bit and see any, cosmetic things that people seem to have issues with from recent, site plan applications.
Joan, is there any, I don't know what's coming up in November. Is our calendar full, or what's going on with?
Well, we have a new subdivision coming for October 3rd for acceptance,
Okay,
and gas station's approved, and Rick's continuing.
right.
And then 275 Dairy Road, which is the lobster boat, they may
Mhm.
get together and have.
Well, the other option too, and it's up to the board, we can always, if you wanted to have a special meeting, to discuss zoning changes or something, I think we can do that. We'd have to notice it, but, it would obviously only be for that purpose. If you wanted to at least address some of those, even if you couldn't get to them during our regular meeting schedule, that's up to the board, whether you guys want to do that. I'm happy to do it.
At this point, we're probably okay to plan on one of our November meetings to be a workshop, but then if we get closer and it looks tough, we could go to
I
a
guess
special
we'll play it by ear then.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
fair enough. Okay,
We're still gonna have the SIP stuff as well, right?
yes.
All of that has to go to
Right.
here and the board.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Okay.
sure impact fees may be in there, landing as well,
Yeah.
so, a lot coming up,
Oh, yeah, it's,
important
it's all coming to
numbers.
fruition. Okay.
At the CIP meeting for the 2nd,
Mhm.
that'll be, the plan is approved.
What they're gonna,
Is it
what the
next
committee is gonna do is it's gonna take all of the requests from the departments and committees, and they're going to do what's called the priority of ranking. So, is this necessary, is this urgent, is this priority, it's just gonna go through the diff list and create that. And I think Jay's gonna create a spreadsheet from that, and then we'll develop the plan accordingly, so.
And then that gets presented to the Board of Selectmen.
That will,
Right.
yes, the CIP will put together a presentation, and then it will go before the Board of Selectmen,
Okay.
so.
I think there'll be a public hearing.
And I think there's a public hearing as well, and I also know usually what we do is we present to the planning board,
Yeah, it's usually, yes,
So,
and that's
we-
scheduled as the public hearing, so.
right, so we'll probably do it then, yeah. So,
So is it the planning board's public hearing or the, okay, and then does the Board of Selectmen also need a public?
No, but
Yeah.
they'll vote to accept it at a public meeting, but it
Right.
doesn't- they'll
At
just
their
do one
meeting.
public
Okay.
hearing.
Okay.
okay. Right. I don't have anything else unless someone else has anything else. I did mention last time about the New Hampshire Energy and Planning. They're having their conference at I think it's the New Hampshire Municipal Association offices. October 14th is going to be presentation concerning planning boards. And encourage you, if you have the opportunity to go. It's a great conference, and it really gives you a good insight into planning board process, procedure, laws, and everything. If you're new to it, it's a good opportunity. And I think it's $90 to sign up, and I believe you will get reimbursement from the town, so. Just throwing,
They did put out a guide, for changes to planning and zoning laws that came out of the last session, so that is out. You can certainly circulate that to everybody. Unlike the prior session, there's really nothing that came out of it that requires us to amend our ordinances or regulations. It was a light lift year.
okay. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Motion by Sam, second.
Second.
Second by Kate. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for joining us this evening. We will see you on October 3rd as our next meeting. Have a good night.